Welcome everyone to the Recalibrate webinar. I'm actually really excited about this topic. And we're talking about reevaluating what's important in your life as your seasons change. And as we were talking about this topic, I was thinking about how in different seasons of our lives, sometimes we do make changes that are just temporary, and sometimes we make changes that are permanent. And, I even think about, when my dad passed away, how they told us not to make any decisions that were permanent for a year because things shift so dramatically in your life. And the closer you are to the person, the more important it is to take that time. And so it's really important that you recognize what season you're in and what choices you're making and correlate the two correctly. Otherwise, if you make a permanent decision when you're not in an emotional space where that's a healthy decision for you, it's sometimes hard to change the course. Actually, you can change the course, but sometimes there's consequences for the course you've chosen in those times. So we're going to talk about the definition of recalibration before we jump into more. It's to change the way you do or think about something. And so when we want to change something, the first thing we need to do is evaluate what we think about or what we do and see if it's a positive thing or a negative thing, and see if it's something that we need to change. Because why change something that's working for us? Why change something that's actually moving us forward? And so it's extremely important to evaluate our actions and our thoughts before we move forward, before we make those changes. Because if we change the wrong things, we could actually be holding ourselves back even more. And we need to let go of the things that are holding us back. And that's where the evaluation comes in, right? You evaluate, well, what's working for me? What isn't? What's holding me back? What isn't? What are the things that are going to move me towards the things that I want? Where do I want to be in a year? And what are those things in my life that are going to get me there? And those are the things you hold on to. You let go of the things that hold you back and hold on to the things that will move you forward. And it seems simple, but it may be simple, but it doesn't always mean that it's easy. Sometimes those things that we need to let go of are things that we're comfortable in. Sometimes it's things that, we're so used to doing that we don't want to let them go. And they've become kind of a safety net for us. But that's all the more reason to let them go, to step into what God has for us, because those things are actually holding us back and not allowing us to go forward. Romans 12:2 actually says it really well. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. And sometimes we get into these negative thought patterns that aren't healthy for us. And we get caught up in these negative thoughts about ourselves and about the things that we're doing. And we get distracted from the things that God wants us to do. And sometimes we step into something and our negative thought patterns actually take us a step back. And that's when it's not good for us, right? Especially if we know we're walking in the path that God has for us, if our actions are actually moving us forward, then any thoughts that actually draw us back from that aren't healthy. They're not helping us. They're actually deterring us. And, I've been struggling with this a bit for the last couple of weeks. I keep taking steps forward, and then I have this battle of my mind that, am I really able to do this? Am I really strong enough to do this? Am I really going to be able to achieve the goals I set for myself? And, I put some aggressive timelines in there. And so I might not be able to do it in the timeline that I've put for myself, but I know I'll get there. And so I have to battle that thought process in my mind. And so there's a lot of times when I need to go and be with God and let him transform those thoughts into thoughts that are going to encourage me. And sometimes I go to my mentor and my accountability partner, and they help me, right? And sometimes I ask my husband for what he sees in me to help me. But God is the foremost person that I go to because his thoughts are the ones I need to link on to. And he's the one who knows me inside and out. He's the one who knows the path set for me. And he knows what actions are going to move me forward towards the goals that I've set for myself, the goals that he gave me, the dream that he's given me to pursue, right? So I found this picture and it really speaks to me about this topic. Do what's right, or do what is right, not what is easy. And like I was saying in the beginning, sometimes it's easy to stay on the path that we're on, even if it's not the right one, because we're comfortable there, especially if we've been on this path for a while and, you know, we're used to it. We're comfortable. We know what to expect. Sometimes when we step out into something new, we have no idea what to expect. And that can be an adventure or it can be terrifying, but it's all in the perspective. So I want to look at it as an adventure, not that it's terrifying, right? If I look at it from the point of view, well, this is an adventure, I'm actually able to like get excited about it instead of being all anxious about it. And if you just allow that fear to take over, then you're going to be dealing with those anxious thoughts that are going to hold you back. And so I just thought this was important. Do what is right, not what is easy. And we all kind of know what's right. Like when we evaluate, when we do an honest evaluation of where we are at, we know what's working for us. We know what's taking us forward, but it may not always be easy to choose that path. Ephesians 4:23-24 says, instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes. Put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. I like that it talks about attitudes because our thoughts form our attitudes and our attitudes like then play into our actions. And if our thoughts aren't right, then our attitudes aren't right. And if our attitudes aren't right, then we have the wrong motives for our actions. So even if we're doing the right action, but the wrong motivation, people sense that, people feel that, and then they feel like you're not being genuine. So it's really important that we let God renew our thoughts. We let the Holy Spirit renew our thoughts and our attitudes, and that we allow ourselves to be in alignment with God's character, with God's heart for us, where we can see his plan clearly and correctly. I also wanted to touch on the fact that it's never too late. No matter how long you've been going down a certain path, there's always a time to shift gears and change direction or adjust course. And like I said in the beginning, there's consequences for the direction that we've chosen, but we always have that opportunity to change that direction, change that course. You know, I love the analogy of the ship, where if you're like even 1 degree off course, the longer that you let it go, the more off course you are, to the point where you're completely like miles off of where you should be. But anytime that you correct that and head back, once again, you're shortening that gap again. So it's never too late, but always, like as soon as you recognize that you need to change paths, do it quicker. Don't just let it delay, because you're just going to drift further and further off course if you do. And it's important to regularly evaluate the path that you're on and see if your actions aren't serving you and how you can change it. I think sometimes there are times when we're too introspective and we get so caught up in evaluating everything that we don't actually act. And then there's times when we act and we haven't actually evaluated whether it's in the right direction or not. And so I think it's important to balance it. It's important to have the balance between evaluation and action, that you know that your actions are actually leading you to the place you want to go. Because otherwise, you're just going to be off course. You're just going to be that 1 degree off of where you should be. And later down the road, it's going to be miles apart from where you want to be. So make sure you take that time to regularly evaluate your path, regularly evaluate your actions, and make sure that it's all going the direction that you want to go in your life. Lamentations 3:22-23. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. Remember to give yourself grace. In these times when we're starting to drift off course, in these times when we're battling with our thoughts, in these times when we feel like we've lost ground, give yourself grace. God gives you grace. You need to give yourself grace. And remember that he gives his mercies begin afresh each morning. They're new each morning. Every day is a new day. And I really love this quote from Anne of Green Gables: tomorrow's always fresh with no mistakes in it yet. And it's like, it's so true. Tomorrow is a new day, right? We can leave today in the past and move forward. We don't have to continue the pathway just because yesterday had it. We can choose a new tomorrow. And so don't get bogged down by the things you've done in the past. Choose a different path if you need a new path for tomorrow. And now I'm going to pass it over to Laura, who's going to take it for the rest of the evening.
So when we were talking about this topic, and I was thinking about the word recalibrate, what actually came to mind for me personally was a computer, right? When you are using your computer, maybe you haven't shut it off for a long time. You have too many programs open and your computer just freezes. It stops working. It doesn't work properly. Some of the functions completely shut down, right? And I'm talking from experience. This is what my computer's been doing lately, right? Or you're not, you do some more work on a program and then all of a sudden you have to press that refresh button for it to repopulate, right? And when we think about this in terms of our life, that's what recalibration is, right? And oftentimes we can miss it, right? We have so much going on in our life. We are like these computers that have 50 tabs open at once, and it slows down our capacity to be able to handle any of them, right? And so how can we recognize when we need to take a step back and do what Connie said, evaluate, take an honest look at, what we're investing our time, energy, resources into, and ask those two questions. Is this serving me? Is this helping me get to where I want to go, or is this hindering me, right? And so these are some signs that I have found in myself. And I'm sure if you are honest with yourself, you could probably relate with at least a few of these. But I become overwhelmed very easily, right? It's like things that normally would be fine, I just get so overwhelmed by them. Another way that I know that I need to take some time to recalibrate is I have a harder time coping with things that are normally so simple, right? Day-to-day tasks, simple conversations with people, right? Another one is feeling fatigued and exhausted all the time, right? You're trying to get rest and you maybe rest and you sleep for 8 to 10 hours, but you still wake up absolutely exhausted. That may be a sign that you need to start reconsidering some things. Another one might be if you're struggling with just having sudden emotional outbursts, right? I have this problem when I'm overwhelmed and when I'm overtaxed and when I have too much going on. And with that comes an inability to regulate your emotions, right? Like being overly sensitive or being overly emotional or not just being able to ground yourself. Another symptom or way to recognize it is, mental fog. And what that means to me is having just difficulty focusing or concentrating, or it's like, sometimes when I'm trying to think of something, it's literally like my brain is like that computer, that arrow that just keeps spinning, right? Like it's thinking, but nothing's ever happening, right? That is a sign to me that it's just like, okay, Laura, you need to rethink some things. Another one is I end up not enjoying things that I used to love, right? If there was things that used to bring me joy, but I just don't even have the capacity to enjoy those things anymore, that is a huge warning sign to me that I need to really address some things in my life. And another one that we might not always associate with overwhelm or needing to look at things in our life are actual physical symptoms. What we don't realize is that our bodies actually communicate with us about things that are happening on an emotional, on a mental, and a spiritual level. And so you might experience symptoms of stress, headaches, loss of appetite, or muscle tension. These things are often a sign that, you are doing way too much, and maybe even the things that you are investing time in are not pushing you in the direction that you want to go, right? They're actually stealing things from you. They're taking things from you and causing you not to be living your life to the fullest. So I want to repaint what recalibration looks like, right? Because when we think of recalibration, we might think, oh, I just need to remove some things from my life. But I think that it takes on so many different forms depending on what we're talking about. And when I was thinking about this topic, all these words started coming to mind, right? When I recalibrate, what does that look like for me? And so I broke it into 4 categories: energy, our thoughts, our passion, and our direction. So when we are feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, we are having those symptoms that we talked about on the last slide. How does recalibrating in the area of our energy look like? It looks like rest. It taking time to actually rest. You are actually going to refresh refresh yourself. The word restore. When you think about restoring a vehicle, right? Imagine you have like a 1950s, Ford Mustang, right? It's worn down. The tires need retreading, or the paint has rusted, or whatever. If you're really wanting to restore your energy, it'll be like, restoring that car. You're going to take time and attention at bringing it back to its original state. Another word or another way of looking at recalibration is to restart, right? Sometimes, like Connie said, sometimes you realize that maybe you were going in the wrong direction. Maybe you were a few degrees off course. And so maybe you actually need to stop what you're doing and restart doing something else. So that's another way recalibration can look. It might also be a time of renewal, right? A time to really invest and impart into parts of your life that you want to grow, that you want to flourish, and you want to put more attention into those things and renew them. Another word is respite. If you've ever been in the area of caring for other people, you know what respite means. It means taking time or delegating things and allowing people to offer assistance in an area so that you can get rest. And so that might mean for a season, you need to put some tasks on hold, or you need to delegate it to other people so that they can take responsibility for things so that you can recalibrate and you can get some rest. It might also look like recharging. When we have our phones and they get completely depleted, you actually have to replug them in, right? All of these words help give us a picture of what recalibration looks like. And I'm a words person, so this like jazzes me up because I get so many mental pictures and I'm like, yes, that's what it looks like for me. That's what I need to do. And it helps even, give me greater understanding of what are some of the strategies I can use in my life in the areas where I'm reconsidering or rethinking some things. Okay, well, how can I, refresh that in my life? Or how can, you know, maybe I need to stop that. How can I restart that in a new way? Right. So these words help stimulate a way for us to think and reframe these things. The second area is our thoughts. And like Connie said, a lot of times, when we are experiencing seasons where we need to recalibrate, it's because our thoughts are not in the right place. And some words that will help us reframe what that looks like are recover, right? Recreate, reconsider, respond, retrospective, reevaluate. All of these words are, centered around taking what you have and making it into something new, right? Being retrospective talks about looking back and considering what's happened in the past so that you can make better choices in the future. That's the same with reevaluating and reassessing, right? It's okay that we stop and look at and reconsider what we're doing and assess whether or not it's something we want to continue doing in the future. Is it aligned with our values? Is it aligned with who we are or the character that we want to develop in our life, right? And we do this all in our mind, right? Sometimes we have to reevaluate the way we think about things. We have to reassess even our motivation behind why we're doing things, right? If we're doing something to please others, that's probably the wrong reason, right? If we're doing something to get accolades or recognition, probably the wrong reason. So all of these are helpful to me when I'm thinking about, well, how does recalibration look when it comes to my thoughts? Another word is remember. And this one's huge because sometimes we forget, especially in the area of God's faithfulness, right? We think, especially if we're struggling right now and we think, well, I'm not going to get through this. Sometimes it's beneficial for us to actually remember what God's brought us through and realize how resilient we are, how strong we are, how much we've grown, right? To remember where we came from. And then that helps spur us forward. And the last word is reconsider, right? Always have a heart to reconsider and decide if there's something else, a better thought to have, a better way of thinking of this, maybe another way to reframe it, and a new perspective to look at it through. The third category is our passions. This is our purpose, the things that drive us. And when we talk about recalibration in this area, some of the words that came to me was renovate. And if you've ever had a renovation project, you know that often you have to dismantle before you rebuild. You have to take out the old before you put in the new. And sometimes that happens with our passions, with our purpose, right? Sometimes we realize the foundation that we've been building something on isn't leading us to the direction that we want to go. And this has even happened recently with my kids, right? They've had a sense and a dream for their future, and then they realized, you know what, that's actually not where I want to go. And so they have to take a few steps back and rethink the direction that they want to go. Sometimes we also have to reframe what we think that our future and our passions and our purpose looks like. If we look at it from a different perspective, sometimes we see it in a whole new way. Sometimes we need to be redirected. like Connie said. Sometimes we realize we're off track and we need to redirect ourselves. And this next word I absolutely love. Sometimes we need to revive our dreams. And I think I wrote that wrong. I put relive. Relieve? That's relieve. It's supposed to be revive. Anyways, we need to revive our dreams and our passions, right? Sometimes we put them to the side. It's almost like we bury them and we forget about them. We think that they're not possible. But what if in your time of recalibration, you actually revive those dreams? You actually bring them back to life. You actually breathe new life into them and you say to yourself, how can I actually walk in this purpose, walk in the passion that I have? And a few other words here: react, respond, and recreate. You know, we always need to be willing to shift, always be willing to look at where we are and where we want to go and be willing to make those course corrections so that we're constantly moving forward. And the last area is direction. In this area, some words that really resonated with me was regain, right? Sometimes, like Connie mentioned, taking a few steps back, right? Sometimes you need to regain those lost ground, right? Sometimes you also have to release things, let go of things. That includes mistakes, that might include relationships that aren't serving you. And that most definitely means releasing regrets, right? A lot of times we can't move forward because we're holding on to the past through regret. You can't change the past. The only thing you can do is learn from it. And so don't hold on to regret. Regret is useless. It will get you nowhere. And so be willing to release that. Sometimes you might have to relaunch yourself. I've actually seen people do this, and it's actually quite inspiring, where, you know, they've had some setbacks in life. They've had challenges and they've had a season of, you know, restoring themselves and getting rest and really rebuilding who they are. And then they come into a new season of relaunching themselves, of putting themselves out there again and saying, you know what, I'm going to try again. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to, you know, give up. I'm going to keep going and I'm going to relaunch. You might, and that also leads us into the word regroup, right? Have you ever had a team and, you know, all of a sudden, whether it's a work team or a volunteer team or whatever, and it's like all of a sudden you just got to regroup. You got to get everyone together. You got to get back on the same page. You got to, you know, reassess and readdress things that maybe have gotten off kilter, off track, and, you know, get everyone going in the same direction. And resolve. Sometimes you just have to resolve yourself to, you know, making those changes, maybe letting those things go, and have a resolve to stick to the decisions that you make. And the last word is reverse. Sometimes, like Connie said, if you know that you're going in the wrong direction, sometimes you're going to have to reverse your way out and go in a completely different direction. And that's okay. That's why this process is important. And like Connie said, do it regularly. I like to do this yearly and sometimes twice a year, depends on how much is going on in my life. But this is something that I actually look forward to, right? It's an opportunity for me to see, you know, honestly look at my life and say, okay, what is actually not serving me? What's actually causing things in my life to not go the way that they are? And then purposefully and intentionally make changes so that I can go in the direction that I want to go. So I wanted to give you guys some steps of how you can do this because, you know, you might resonate with some of the words I shared and have some pictures of what it looks like, but how do you practically do it? And so I've broken it down into a few steps. And the first one is honestly reflect on your current situation. Reflect on your relationships, friendships, your responsibilities, your commitments. How are those things impacting you right now? And are they bringing you life? Are you just tired and weary? Do you need a short-term break? Do you need to stop those things altogether? What is it that is currently happening in your life, and how is it impacting you? Number two, evaluate what is working and what's not, and how you feel in each of your areas of responsibility. One great indication for me if something needs to change is when I think about that particular duty or responsibility or person in my life, if it causes me a lot of turmoil, anxiety, pain, or whatever, I know that there's something about that situation or that relationship that isn't working well that needs to be adjusted. And so take time to make those evaluations and to really be honest with yourself. Number three, define what's important to you. What are your values? What is the vision for your future? Who do you want to become? And there's a quote, I believe it's by James Clear, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but the gist of it is when you have a clear sense of your values and where you want to go in life, then it's easy to say yes to the things that align to that. And it's just as easy to say no to things that don't align with that. And so knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and knowing where you want to go is very important in times of recalibration, because that will help you make those hard decisions. It will help you say no to things that aren't leading you in that direction. And number four, prioritize self-care. This one, I think we don't take enough time for. We need to take time to refresh ourselves from our previous seasons. Like Connie says, we all go through seasons. We all are in different stages of life. And if you've come through a very long, hard season, carve out time for yourself. Carve out time to take care of yourself. You know, Connie and I like to take, 3 or 4 weeks at the end of the year to do that very thing, rest, restore ourselves, reconsider things for the new year and make some really important course corrections, right? And I encourage you that if you're taking this seriously, to prioritize self-care, take time for yourself, and don't move forward into your next season until you have fully restored yourself from what your previous season was, right? Because a lot of times we do enter into seasons of rest, but we don't fully refresh ourselves, and we just immediately re-engage in different areas of our life, and we find that we will get burnt out even quicker next time. So make sure that you know, take that time and you do it in completion, right? Until I'm ready. I'm ready to get back in the game. I'm ready to get back on my feet and move forward in whatever area it is that we're talking about. And number five, make changes to reflect where you want to go, who you want to become, and what you want to do. So when you identify those things, then make the necessary changes to make it happen. If that means you need to add certain people to your life, then do that. If that means you need to remove certain people from your life, then do that. If that means you need to go back to school to learn a trade or get a degree, then do that. Whatever that means for you, make those necessary changes so that you can continue to move in the direction that you want. And number six, this really should have been number one, but keep God at the center of all these decisions. I honestly can't make these decisions without God. And I know I couldn't successfully live my life without Him. And so keeping Him at the center will help you stay aligned with your truest identity, which is you are a child of God. You're created in His image and you have purpose. And many of us have struggled with knowing what our purpose is. And so that you'll get from God. So keep him at the center and let him guide you. Let Holy Spirit speak to you. Let him renew your thoughts. Let him renew even the desires of your heart. And let him guide you in these ways. And you'll be amazed at how easy it is to make some of these decisions when you place God at the center of them. I love this quote. I don't know who wrote it, but it says reset, refocus, readjust, restart as many times as you need. Just never give up. And this is true to life. How many of us have had to do this over and over and over again? It's part of life. But the main point of this is just never give up. Never give up the ghost. Never say it's not worth pursuing. It's not worth continuing. It doesn't matter if it takes you 10 years longer than you thought. Keep going. Keep going in that direction of your dreams, of your passions, of who you are, of who you want to become. Make those small incremental changes every day, and you will see it come to pass. And continue to reset and refocus and readjust as you need. And you'll get there. And you'll be able to do this. I have faith in you. I'm seeing it happen in my own life, and I know you can too. So we're going to jump into our activation, and we want you to reflect on your past year. I don't know how often you do these reflection exercises, but like I said, Connie and I like to do this a minimum of once a year. And it's a good way of doing it at the end of the year before you restart a new year, right? Really just taking into consideration everything that you faced this past year, everything you put your hand to. And one thing I want to mention is you can't change what you don't acknowledge, right? A lot of times we go through life almost like the proverbial flamingo with their head in the sand, oblivious to life. We just go through the day to day and not realize how much things are impacting us negatively. And so be willing to take honest assessment and acknowledge where you are. This is the first step in making changes that will make a difference in your life. And so, just take the next 5 minutes or so reflecting on this past year and reflect on how you're feeling right now. I know for myself, I'm feeling a bit tired. I'm feeling that I'm definitely in need of some respite and some time to reflect and reconsider some things. And does this alarm me? No, I'm actually excited about it. I personally get excited by these things because I know every shift, every change that I bring into my life is going to actually accelerate me in my new year, in my new season. And so I'm very open to, really evaluating, well, how am I actually feeling right now on all levels? And that's a question I want you to ask yourself. Another question is, are there things in your life that you're frustrated with and you wish were different? Write those things down. Because if there is things that you're frustrated with, how can you change those things moving forward to make it less frustrating, to make it something that would be a pleasure instead of, something that you regret or you don't want to do? Are you feeling burnt out and overwhelmed? Are there things you wish you were doing, but you don't have the time and energy to pursue? That's another huge one, right? Consider that. Are there things you want to be doing, but you aren't doing because you don't have time or energy? Write those things down. And take time to write down your vision, your values, and the direction you want to go in this next year. And I like to call it brain dumping, right? You literally just write everything down on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to make sense right now. Just get it all out of your mind. Allow it just to pour out of you, and then you can sort it out afterwards. Because it might take you some time to look at, the of what you're actually feeling and look at it and then really start evaluating, okay, well, this is connected to this and this is impacted by that. And then you'll be able to see a clearer picture and be able to come up with a plan. So the 3 keys to remember. Number 1, reflection is required to recalibrate. Don't hold on to regrets. They only keep you stuck to the past. Learn from what didn't work and move on. Number 2, rest is one of the most important steps in recalibration. If you don't take time to restore yourself, you'll not be able to move into your new season effectively. And number 3, every day holds within itself the possibility of a new start. Don't wait years to make course corrections. Make them as soon as you realize that you're not where you want to be. And I like this quote from Susan Alder. You're not lost. You're just recalibrating. So if you've ever felt like, oh, I'm so lost, I don't know what I'm doing, just tell yourself, I'm not lost. I'm just recalibrating. So next month's webinar will be the second Thursday of the month, which is January 8th. We will not be meeting on New Year's Day. And we will be talking about stress, and it is timely for that time of year. It is often one of the most joyful, but also most stressful times of the year. And so we hope that you would join us that on January 8th at 7 o'clock on Zoom. And Connie and I will be sharing that one, I believe. And for those of you that have been staying in tune with what we're doing, we just had our annual silent auction this past week. We had it at the Banquet Mahogany. It was actually a fantastic event. And we were able to raise approximately $3,369, which is incredible. That's going to go a long way in the work that we do in helping others overcome in their times of need. And so thank you for everyone who attended, who put in auction bids for the items, or even those that donated products, and also those who just made donations because they couldn't come. We thank each and every one of you, and we could not do what we are doing without the support. And if you want to support us more regularly, there are ways you can do that. You can become a monthly supporter. You can sponsor specific events or people to utilize certain programs that we do. So if that's something of interest to you, please reach out to us. Check out our seeds page on our website to find out more. And you can also support us too by, purchasing things off of our online store. There are so many ways that you can get involved and you can support the work that we're doing. This Christmas auction was just one of them, and we are so thankful for everyone who participated and contributed to that event. Thank you so much. Once again, I am still doing my Passionate Pursuits starting 6 a.m. Monday to Fridays. I want to mention that I will be taking a week's break for Christmas from December 20th to December 28th. So during that week, I will not be going live, but I do encourage you all to continue prioritizing God in your day. Hopefully first in your day so that it really sets the tone for your day. And once again, to hear more of what Connie and I have to share on each one of these topics, join us on the NOSA Unleashed podcast. Subscribe so you get notification of all the new episodes that we release. And we are excited to continue this in the new year. So thank you once again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.